Well, welcome to More Faith with Keisha. My name is Keisha and my last name is Moore. And on this channel, we talk all things faith, most things faith. I love to give my faith testimony to motivate, inspire, encourage you to keep the faith. And I would like to say, I wrote a book, Testimonies of a Faithful God. And in this book, I give 13 testimonies about how God has been faithful in my life. It's 60 pages. It's a quick read, but I promise it will inspire, motivate, encourage you, and elevate your faith to another level. And you can purchase it on my website, More Faith with Keisha. So, this is part 5 of when God blessed me with a new job. So, if you have not watched part 1, part 2, part 3, or part 4, I would highly recommend watching those so that way you understand what I'm talking about in part 5 and in part 4, just to piggyback. So I talked about how I worked for insurance company number 2. The CEO left. Everything went buck wild. The person in charge was like, just cared about numbers, not integrity, not quality. Me and a few other people who chose to keep the integrity and quality, we almost got fired. However, God protected us. So I ended up leaving the insurance company number 2. I took a medical leave. I just had a lot going on health-wise. I took a leave, and when I took that leave, I was like, you know what? I do not want to be in insurance anymore. Like, it's too stressful. Everything that I experienced at insurance company number 2, like, I just never want to feel that way again. So I was like, I don't even care if my insurance license expires. If anyone who has an insurance license, you know how hard it can be to get an insurance. You have to study for the test. You have to memorize all the insurance lingo. Like, it's not something that you want to let, but I was so sure that I would not go back to insurance. So I was willing to let it expire. However, God had other plans. So to make a long story short, I was living in California, off work, took the leave, didn't plan on going back, had to get my health in order, my mind right or whatever. I ended up moving to Dallas, Texas. When I moved to Dallas, Texas, I started working at a car dealership. And, there is a certain personality, a certain level of integrity or lack thereof. Not all, but people that I've experienced that, will work at the car dealership. So, I'm new to Dallas. I needed a job. It was paying good, but there was just no peace. There was just no peace at that job. And during that time, I had been away from insurance for like a year. And I started to miss it. I'm working at the car dealership. I'm like, dang, like I miss working in the insurance industry. I miss the people that I work with. I miss the social environment. I miss talking to people. I love talking to people. I love helping. But I was like, I let my insurance license expire because I didn't think that I was going to go back to insurance. But just God downloaded something in my spirit, right? So I was like, you know what? I'm going to start applying for insurance jobs, and I'm going to go and renew my insurance license. First of all, my insurance license never expired. It should have expired, but I don't know what happened, but my insurance license did not expire. So that was nothing but the grace of God. Like, I just needed a break from it, but I was ready to come back. And so I started applying for insurance jobs. I actually got hired at one insurance company. They sent me all the equipment, but the insurance company in California where all my friends worked at and CEO of insurance company number 2 actually worked at, I wanted to work there. And so I called one of my friends and I was like, hey, is your company hiring? And he was like, oh, yeah, but they're not going to hire you because you live out of state. They wouldn't even hire someone else who lived 2 hours away from the job. And I was like, oh, okay. And he wasn't hating or anything. He was just telling me like the truth, but God had other plans. So I was like, all right, no biggie. But then something about it or whatever, it just didn't feel right. I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to reach out to my next friend, Yesenia. She worked for the company too. And then I called Yesenia. I was like, hey, is your company, hiring? And then she was like, oh yeah, send me your resume. And I was like, okay, it just felt right. So I sent her my resume, right? And keep in mind, this company is based in California. I am in Dallas, Texas. They were not hiring anyone to work out of state. I send her my resume. She sends it to the sales recruiter. The sales recruiter calls me for an interview. Everything went excellent. Everything went well. And he was like, oh, the CEO from insurance company number 2, Yesenia, everybody. Oh yeah, you'll be a great fit. I'm sure they'll hire you. So I was feeling good. I was like, okay, I'm about to make, good money. It's something that I'm familiar with. And I was just excited. So the sales recruiter who told me that, everything looked good, he was sure that they would hire me. He calls me the next day and he was like, well, the sales manager, not CEO, but he said the sales manager doesn't want to interview you because he feels like you have a lot going on and you're not going to stay with the company. You moved from California. Now you're in Dallas. You worked at a car dealership, but he didn't understand the whole story. So he was like, I'm so sorry. He was like, I was sure they were going to hire you because you know everyone. And I was like, oh, okay. And I'm not going to lie, I was very, very disappointed because I really wanted that job. It was a really good paying job and it would be the highest pay that I had ever received in my life. And the other insurance company that I got hired for, I was just going to work there because I just, wanted to get back in insurance and I didn't want to be at the car dealership. So I remember I was driving to work one morning and I'm driving. And I was driving to the car dealership and then I was praying and I was like, God, if this is where you want me to be, then this is where I'll be. But I was like, this is the amount of money that I want to make. And I was just, started praying about all the things that I wanted in a job and in a company. And I just felt, peace about it. So I get to work. And when I get to work, I get a phone call, right? And so when I get the phone call, it's the sales recruiter from the insurance company in California that I really wanted to work at. And he said, I bet you thought you'd never hear from me again. And I was like, oh, I didn't think I would hear from you again. And this is how God works, you guys. So remember in part 4, when I talked about I chose to keep my integrity and not compromise when everybody was getting sales, when everyone else was making the commission, when everyone was getting the gift cards. I chose to keep my integrity and do things the right way because I wanted to please God, and I know that God sees everything. So the sales recruiter said, I bet you thought you never hear from me again. And he told me, he said, your name came up in a meeting and they talked about everyone they interviewed. And when they mentioned Keisha Moore, CEO said, wait, Keisha Moore that used to work for insurance company number 2? And they were like, yeah. He told, just say his name was John. He said, John, I want you to get on the phone and call her and see what's going on. Praise God. Because CEO hired me for insurance company number 2, and he knew that I was a person of integrity and I didn't compromise and I was reliable. He knew that. So I get the interview with John. Oh, and then the recruiter told me, he was like, yeah, I've been doing this for 17 years. And this is the first time I've ever experienced something like this. When they don't want to interview or hire somebody, they never come back. But he was like, your name came up in the meeting. And, and so John sets up the interview. I interview with John. I already knew it was going to go good. I'm talking to him. He wants to know everything that I have going on. I tell him the whole story of how I moved from California. Then I was at the car dealership. And he was like, yeah, you already know insurance and all this. You'll be fine if we hire you. But kind of wink, wink, yeah, we know we're going to hire you. And I was like, yeah. So I get off the phone and everything felt good. So then I had the next part of the interview with 2 other managers for the insurance company in California. So those interviews went well. Everything went good. The next week, I ended up getting a phone call saying I got hired. So I was so happy. I was so excited. And every detail of what I wanted, I actually got when it came to the job. So I just want to encourage you also, like, if you're believing God for something, like, be very specific. Don't let people make you feel like you're requesting too much or you're being greedy. Like, no, like, request what it is that you want. If it's within the Lord's will, you'll get it. If not, maybe it's not the season for it. But don't let that stop you from praying for what it is that you really want. So I ended up getting the job, making more money than I've ever made. And I was the only person that worked for that insurance company that lived out of state. They did not hire anybody else that lived out of state. And all I know is that was the grace and that was the favor of God, because I moved from California to Dallas because God told me to move to Dallas. Like, I wasn't thinking about moving to Texas, although for 7 years God, put it on my heart that I was going to move. So when it finally happened, I just did it. I was obedient to him, and I did it when he told me to do it, and God provided and he opened up the door for me. So I want to encourage you to keep the faith, keep the integrity, walk with God, and watch God move. So I love you. Stay blessed and have a wonderful day, and I will see you soon. Bye.